Hey, Zerva here, and today I'll cover the show My Isekai Life. I gained a second character class and became the strongest sage in the world. Yuji is an adventurer in the village of Fasten. Due to his classification as a monster tamer, he is assumed by most to be weak and is often overlooked. But in secret is a very powerful sorcerer known as a sage. 10,000 monsters attack the village and Yuji helps the other adventurers mount a defense, tracking the monsters with his multiple tamed slimes, as well as his wolf monster Proud Wolf and forest spirit dryad. Yuji is able to protect the village with a barrier and destroy the monsters of Dragon's Fire by feeding a dragon bone to one of his slimes. His other slimes capture the man responsible, a member of a cult called Blue Moon of Salvation. The cultist, however, commits suicide after being captured, leaving behind a magical lantern he used to control the monsters. Yuji passes out from using too much magic. Yuji briefly remembers a past life as a salaryman in Japan, and so he sneaks away from the celebrating adventurers before they can thank or reward him or draw too much attention to him. Yuji travels to Kilia's adventurer guild and is invited to form a party due to his tracking abilities. The knife wielder roadies Archer Tina and spear wielder Lisa. They accept a job to track a rock dragon. As they sleep that night, Yuji dreams of falling asleep as a salaryman but waking up in the world of a game he was playing as a novice tamer. Despite his confusion, he tamed several slimes and immediately discovered the disused hut of a deceased sorcerer. He found that as the slimes read the sorcerer's book collection, he instantly gained all the skills and knowledge from the books and within minutes gained the title of sage. Awakened, he finds Rhodes is missing. Tracking him, they follow Rhodes to a bandit camp and learn Rhodes is a bandit who lures and kidnaps adventurers to sell them into slavery. Yuji freezes the bandits' camp in solid ice, and the girls realize one of the bandits is Gelios, an infamous bandit and cult member with a substantial price on his head. Yuji realized the Blue Moon cult was behind the attack at Fasten and appears concerned about a cryptic claim Gelios made about a future calamity. Yuji continues tracking the rock dragon with Tina and Lisa. The moon and sky suddenly turn blue, as foretold by the cultist's prophecy, and a blue dragon appears, forcing them to shelter in nearby Delight Canyon. The rock dragon emerges and blocks Yuji, Tina, and Lisa from going further. With the slimes, Yuji uses a powerful fire spell to burn the earth dragon so only its skeleton remains. With the dragon skull and the bounty on Gelios, the guild pays them 14 million gold. Yuji is drawn into a meeting with guild chief Rayard and Grand Cathedral representative Father Stale. Stale reveals in church legend the dragon appeared and destroyed a continent before being defeated by a divine emissary who rivaled the power of God. 30 years ago, the church performed a summoning ceremony to cause the emissary to appear 1 week before the dragon, but the emissary never came. Even without the emissary, Rayard orders the guild to attack the dragon at first light. In private, Stale reveals a holy vision directed him to gift Yuji a church relic, the Dagger of Kethais, which can focus magic power. That night, as his slimes report that the blue dragon continues to grow larger, Yuji fears many adventurers will die and comes to a decision. Yuji and his slimes spring an attack on the dragon. Utilizing protective barrier magic, Yuji is able to avoid the dragon's attacks, and with his fire magic concentrated in the Dagger of Kethais, stabs it in the neck so the explosion kills the dragon instantly. With the dragon mysteriously defeated, Stale leaves, but Rayard suspects Yuji. Having drawn too much attention again, Yuji leaves for the town of Ricardo, which, according to Tina and Lisa, is a completely ordinary place. Dryad informs Yuji dead dragons contain something called Dragon Grace, which has sprouted mushrooms around the corpse with which she can make potions, red to increase sage skills, and blue to restore depleted magic. As the potions brew, Yuji remembers first meeting Dryad dying after an unidentified person drained her forest's magic with a crystal. So he saved her with a magic transfusion, then destroyed the crystal, restoring her forest. Yuji encounters a village shrouded in fog called the Village of Meshes. The villagers are suspicious of his presence but allow him to leave when he assures them he was just lost. As he leaves, the villagers contact an unknown person to reassure him their plan to retrieve the Dragon Grace is unaffected. Yuji makes it to where Ricardo should be but finds the landscape covered in unnatural snow. Entering Ricardo, Yuji learns the snow is unusual and none of the villagers were prepared for it. As such, the firewood has already been used up. Disappointed he can't try Ricardo's famous cuisine without cooking fires, Yuji figures out how to use his slimes to dry out freshly chopped trees to make perfect firewood. The town chef, grateful for the wood, cooks Yuji one of his finest dishes in gratitude. Seeing the rest of Ricardo is still short on wood, Yuji joins the local foresters and shocks them by procuring enough wood for the entire town to last several weeks. Yuji receives yet another meal, but the chef reveals it is not his best food as the fields where the town grows its famous herbs is plagued by monsters that eat them. Proud Wolf and the slimes help locate the boar-type monsters and defeat them. They also find a crystal orb which turns out to be Dragon Grace refined into a cursed crystal, that is absorbing all the magic in the area and causing the snow. Following other crystals set in a circular pattern, Yuji locates the pattern's center and, despite Dryad's unhappy permission, destroys the forest around the center, revealing an old house with a trapdoor leading underground. Yuji discovers an enormous machine that uses stolen magic absorbed by the crystal orbs to produce dragon grace. The slimes explore the cave and emerge in meshes, proving all the villagers are Blue Moon cultists. Their leader Javier is furious Yuji's destroying the forest also damaged the machine. Working in secret, the slimes swallow all the cult's sacred texts and treasure. Yuji decides to kill the cultists until Javier mentions a weapon called Cleansing Flame, which will destroy the area if the cultists die, including Ricardo Village. Yuji decides to let them live, but all the cultists abruptly commit suicide to activate the flame. Working quickly, Yuji retrieves the slimes and, combining every magical barrier he knows, creates a new spell called Total Isolation Barrier that prevents the flame spreading beyond meshes. The snow starts to melt, and the Ricardo villagers celebrate Yuji as the firewood hero and reward him with Chef's True Finest meal since he now has access to his herb field again. The texts are booby-trapped with a spell that turned them blank except for a list of the cult's targets, which includes Yuji. Elsewhere, two assassins with an identical list choose Yuji as their next target. On the advice of the villagers, Yuji heads for Virginia, a town famous for outfitting tamed monsters with armor. The assassins follow him to determine if he is a threat to the cult. Aware of their presence, Yuji considers killing them but worries this will draw the cult's attention. Instead, he decides to find a way to have his name removed from the assassins' list. Reaching Virginia, Yuji puts on a convincing display that he is a penniless idiot in a trunk. He also attempts to pretend to be an amateur monster tamer while batting several bull monsters, but his warrior instincts are too strong, and he accidentally reveals his skill with a sword. The assassins are confused but eventually conclude he is a complete novice with some natural sword skills and leave to report to their employer, who reveals to them about Mesh's destruction. The slimes overhear the assassins discuss their next target, Father Stale. Unwilling to let that happen, Yuji has his slime set off an ice explosion, freezing the assassins solid. With the assassins dealt with, Yuji is able to act normally again and asks Boinia's best armorer Jagel for armor for his slimes. Jagel agrees but claims there is a problem with a monster at a nearby volcano. Jagel reveals to craft suitable armor he must have a jewel from a blue lesser fire dragon. The volcano is a nest for lesser fire dragons, and blue are the rarest. Yuji learns from the guild the only way to defeat one would be to fatally cool their bodies with water from the closest available river, which is home to a giant monster piranha. On the way, Yuji tames several red fire slimes who help him capture the piranha for a large bounty. He also defeats multiple dragons using water summoned by magic and collects their jewels. His slimes eventually locate a blue dragon, which is defeated by ice magic. Returning to the guild, Yuji collects multiple quest rewards for killing 202 dragons, 2 blue dragons, and the piranha. With an abundance of jewels, Jagel crafts armor for the slimes and Proudwolf that vastly increases their speed, though he warns Yuji his most powerful spells could damage or even destroy the armor if overused. The only way to craft stronger armor is with a jewel from a true flame dragon, which lives in the lava of the volcano and rarely comes to the surface. The remaining lesser dragons suddenly go mad from the same cultist spell that made 10,000 monsters attack Fasten, and the flame dragon itself emerges from the volcano. The slimes spot 2 men heading for the fire dragon carrying barrels. They mention they came from a town called Ordarian. They avoid Yuji's trap, proving they are experienced, but they are captured regardless. To avoid interrogation, they commit suicide, proving they were with the cult. Dryad confirms the barrels contain cursed water, a weaker version of the cursed crystals, probably designed to enrage the flame dragon. It begins to rain, which enrages the fire dragon, who never emerges during the rainy season in case the rain extinguishes its fire. Terrified, the villagers evacuate Virginia while Yuji stays behind to confront it. The dragon is so hot its presence dries up a river. Yuji uses ice magic to slow the dragon down while using a barrier to dam the river, releasing the collected water once it rises high enough and completely submerges the giant dragon. This only enrages it, and it attempts to destroy Virginia. Yuji is forced to use his strongest ice spell and freezes the dragon solid, killing it. The slimes collect the dropped flame jewel and also discover an object near the volcano. Yuji gives the flame jewel to Jagel, who promises to craft armor never seen before. Yuji discovers the object is an artificial rainmaker, meaning the cult made it rain to enrage the dragon on purpose. Yuji reaches Ordarian and identifies cult members who refer to someone called Walter. Father Stale explains that in his youth he founded the Blue Moon Church to honor dead adventurers. Walter joined the church and quickly became Stale's right-hand man. Soon after, Walter and his loyal followers murdered all other church members except Stale and established the cult with the goal of cleansing the world of all sin and corruption. meaning all of humanity. By divine revelation, Stale is convinced Yuji is the divine emissary and it is his destiny to defeat Walter, though he does not tell Yuji the whole truth about his revelation. Walter receives a divine revelation: the emissary will be victorious if Stale is killed. Stale leaves Erdarian, so Yuji has the slimes follow him to a cave where Walter resides with the rest of the cultists. Believing Yuji is the emissary, Stale plans to let Walter kill him so Yuji will be victorious. Stale is suddenly betrayed by his own servant Johan, who has been in contact with Walter, who has known about Yuji the entire time. Yuji arrives just in time to save Stale. Walter places himself inside a machine that infuses his body with dragon grace, mutating him into a dragon. Yuji outfits Proud Wolf and a slime with their armor, allowing them to destroy part of Walter's body. Walter absorbs grace from his monsters, healing himself and growing larger. Coordinating his slimes, Yuji traps Walter in nets and destroys his body. Before dying, Walter prays that the revelation will begin. Walter's machine activates upon Walter's death, absorbing his corpse, his monsters, and even Johan, to summon a one-eyed man who calls himself Sage. Stale is forced to reveal the rest of the revelation to Yuji, that the death of a teacher shall cause the emissary to be victorious. He had assumed it would be his death that made Yuji victorious, but it is clear it actually meant Walter's death would resurrect the original emissary that died centuries ago fighting the original blue dragon. Sage, using magic similar to Yuji's, attempts to kill him and destroys the cave to escape into the sky. Despite a ferocious fight, Yuji and his slimes are unable to defeat Sage. Sage begins the salvation of the world by activating multiple Rainmaker machines powered by grace, creating rain clouds that rain grace over all the land, infecting monsters across the world. The monsters begin attacking nearby villages. Sage claims he will provide salvation by destroying the world. The slimes reveal that in every village he has visited, adventurers and citizens have risen up in defense of their homes, inspired by Yuji. Stale receives a new revelation: when the sun and moon unite, divine judgment will be bestowed. Sage demands to know why Yuji insists on defending the world, and Yuji only responds that he happens to like the world as it is. Using his most powerful spell called Divine Judgment, Yuji concentrates the spell into the dagger of Kethais, causing a light so bright it temporarily eclipses the sun, just as in Stale's revelation. Sage is stabbed with the dagger and destroyed. Despite every village celebrating, Yuji once again chooses to quietly disappear. Elsewhere, the remaining cult members dismiss Walter's death as trivial as they are working on a new machine, a purifier, which will destroy the entire continent and with it their final enemy, the Black Dragon of Judgment. Eavesdropping via his slime, Yuji is exasperated that the cult still hasn't given up. After collecting another bounty in a new village, Yuji learns from local guild leader Media that defeating dragons and Sage has made him famous across the continent, and his desire to live in obscurity is now impossible. That was all. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for future content.